Hello and welcome to Mentor Training number 1 for the 2021-2022 school year. My name is Heidi Beck. You've already seen me in the orientation video by now. I wish we could have gotten a chance to meet in person for this training, but we are not able to do that at this time, so I'm grateful for the technology that allows us to do it this way. So this training has been set up as a video to start, and then there are some more interactive activities that will go with it. So you'll have a week to complete all of it. It's posted today, October 11th, and you have exactly 1 week until October 18th to finish viewing it. But just like the assignments for the candidates, you also have a grace period, so you technically have until October 25th. We do plan on having our debrief for this session on October 25th, so if you plan on attending, you may want to watch this in advance. We are offering 2 options for the debrief. We will have an in-person option with me that is here at the district office October 25th from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. And we will also be offering it on Zoom. So for those who either don't feel comfortable coming in person or can't make it for whatever reason but still want to debrief and connect with other mentors, it will be on Zoom from 4 to 5 p.m. The same day, October 25th. And that will be led by Mary Jimeno, who is one of our retired teacher mentors. And she's assisting me with a lot of different things in the program this year, so you might see her name from time to time. All right. So first I want to thank you all for either continuing to be a mentor or for beginning as a mentor this year for the first time. We are so grateful for you and for all that you do for your candidates. This year, a lot of the new teachers haven't even had a chance to be in person until this year. So they had their preliminary program was online. Student teaching experience was online in a lot of cases. So this year is going to present a lot of different challenges and some new ideas and room for growth. But we're grateful to have you on board with us and supporting the candidates through this journey. So here's our agenda. We are going to be first covering some program-specific information. I always like to share survey data from the previous year so that we know where we need to grow. And then I will also be talking about the observations and how they're going to go this year. And we'll take a look at the ILP due dates and also what parts are due when. And I'll show you where you can find samples online. And I'll also show you where you can find some new resources that we've added this year for ILP support. The next thing you're going to do is watch a coaching video. So Mentoring Matters is a coaching program, and they have a website that they provide with some free resources. So you'll have a chance to go in and select whether you want to watch a planning conversation between a coach and a candidate or a reflective conversation. And there'll be some prompts to do along with that. And then the next activity is going to be a book study. So you've all received a copy of The Art of Coaching, and we're going to be reading Chapter 9 for this session and responding to some prompts with that as well. And then the very last thing is going to be the mentor self-assessment. So every year we have the mentors assess themselves on the different skills and levels of mentoring. And so there'll be an activity sheet to complete, and then the survey that goes with it. That goes to our research group and gives us just more information and more data so that we can continue to plan for our training sessions with you. Okay, so first we're going to cover the program-specific information. So like I said, there's things that apply to everybody, no matter if you've been mentoring for years or this is your first year. And so these are kind of those things that I want to be able to make sure everyone gets the same information on. So survey data. We give surveys, and we have our candidates and mentors complete them, and administrators complete them as well. And so every year when I review the results and the data, I try to find the things that I want to share with you to make sure that we know what to work on. But I do want to first also say, even though it's not in my slide, that we always get a lot of positive feedback from the candidates in regards to mentors and how grateful they are for the support that they receive. I wish I could share all of those comments with you, but there's pages and pages and pages of all the things that they comment on for what they appreciate in a mentor. And but a lot of them use names, and so we try to keep it confidential. So anyway, just so you know, though, that the feedback is always very, very positive, and that they really believe they couldn't do this program without you, and that's what we know to be true as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. But I also look for the areas where we can grow a little bit, so that we're always constantly trying to make some program improvements. So I identified 3 areas that were just scored a little bit lower than the rest of our results. So the first thing is use of paraphrasing and clarifying questions. So when you meet with your candidate, these are skills that you can try out or work on. And we're going to go into detail a little bit more when you watch the videos, because you'll see paraphrasing and clarifying questions being used by the coaches in the videos. But basically, what we want to do when we're meeting with our candidates is making sure that we understand their needs that they're sharing with us, or the questions that they're asking us. And I know I can say that for me, sometimes when I'm listening, I tend to think ahead and I try to think about what I'm going to say in response, or how I'm going to address what they're sharing with me. But then that takes away from my listening, and I don't always get it right. So I think that paraphrasing can be very effective for kind of having you pause as you listen and make sure you got it right. And so you kind of repeat back, a brief little summary of what they just shared with you to say, okay, let me make sure I'm understanding you. This is what you're saying. And what goes with that is clarifying questions as well. So when they're asking you, or when they're sharing things with you that might be a little vague, it's important that we ask those clarifying questions to just make sure that they're being specific with either the issues or the concerns that they have, or just the needs that they're expressing. The other one is using data to inform shared conversations. So again, when you have these weekly meetings with your candidates, it's important to make sure that data is being used to inform those conversations. So if your candidate is coming to you and saying, "Oh, my kids they're doing terrible on their assessments right now," or they're doing this, and they're being really general about it, it's a good idea to say, "Hey, let's look at the data. Let's see it. Let's see specifically where they're falling short, or what specific skills they're lacking, and that we can move forward and support them with." Because again, this will help give a lot more information to the conversations that you're having, and then will allow you to help create goals with them and kind of focus that support a little bit better. So just try and use data wherever you can. And the same is true for when you meet with them for their own assignments, like the ILP. Looking at it specifically, the data that they're sharing about students, making sure that it's specific, making sure that they are making the decisions on their instruction based on what they're seeing with their students. So really just using that data to inform. And then the last one is documenting shared meetings to record the work. So we obviously have the collaborative log, where they're documenting the meetings that they have with you or with other people, or the trainings that they attend, or just anything that they do induction related. But it's also important to make sure that when you meet with them, you are documenting what's being talked about, what's being shared in these conversations, for obviously a couple of reasons. One, it helps you to look back on those notes later and remember what you discussed and what you might be wanting to look for the next time around you meet, but also so that you can go back and review the progress that's been made. So for example, if you meet and you suggest a new strategy for them to try in their class, it would be a good idea to document that, so that the next time you meet, you can check in and say, "Hey, how did this go? I know last time you talked about wanting to engage your students a little bit more. I gave you this one strategy you could try. Did you try it yet? How did it go?" So just making sure that we are documenting. And like I said, these come specifically from the data. These are specific questions that are asked to the candidates. Is how, on a scale of whatever, 1 to 4 or something, how is your mentor's use of paraphrasing and clarifying questions, and so on. So just these are 3 things that I'd like to focus on for this training. And you'll see it, like I said, in the videos that are coming up, and also in the chapter that we're reading from The Art of Coaching. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about are the observations. So as you know from the orientation video, there are 3 observations required per year per candidate. So if you have 1 candidate, then you'll be observing them 3 times this year. If you have 2 candidates, you'll be observing each of them 3 times this year, so that would be 6 for you. The best way to do them is to spread them out so that you can really see that growth over time. So we've kind of created this timeline for you to follow. It's not completely set in stone and strict, because I know things come up, or the timeline might not work for you for whatever reason, but this is just to keep you and your candidate on track, so that you have enough time in between observations. What we've seen in the past sometimes is that the observations will all take place in 1 month, or they'll take place all towards the end of the year. And we really want to see that growth over time, and we want the candidates to have a chance to use your suggestions and your feedback, integrate it into their lessons and their instruction, and then you be able to comment on it in the future. So this is the timeline we came up with, and like I said, there's some wiggle room for sure, but we would like you to try to stick to this one if possible. And then for the last one, just so you know, we have it that you complete it by April 29th. I know that you are mentoring through the month of May as well. And if you need to use May, that's fine. Honestly, the only reason I put this here is because every year for payroll, they're asking, okay, can you give us the list of who's getting paid for what this month? And it just makes it easier for you to get paid faster if it's done by this date. But of course, you'll still get paid after that. It's just, this is just one way to make sure that we try to keep everybody on the same timeline. And then I just wanted to give a reminder of the options for observations this year. So the one that we're recommending is that a candidate records themselves, which is what they did last year, for those who were in the program last year. So it's a 30 to 45-minute lesson. They can record it using their cell phone or whatever device they want to use. If they're a virtual academy teacher, they can just record their Zoom lesson. And then they submit it to you by an agreed upon date. So that's between the two of you. Obviously, for the first one, if we were asking you to complete it by October 29th, you'd probably want to ask them to give it to you sooner than that so you have time to review it and give them feedback. And then remember also that you may choose to give up a prep to observe a lesson live if that's what you prefer, but we are not able to pay for that because it's within the workday. So I've had some people already ask, is it okay? Can I rather just use my prep and I'd rather just go observe them during the school day? That's totally fine, but it's up to you. We're not recommending that because, like I said, we can't pay you for it. And then just remember that you should be having planning conversations and reflecting conversations before and after each lesson observation. So before you even observe or before you even look at their recording, you want to make sure that you've sat down with them once already and planned out what it is that they want you to look for and give feedback on. If there's any specific logistics to how the observation will take place, if you're a virtual academy teacher and they're going to be coming into your Zoom class, do you want their camera off? Those kinds of things. But mostly focusing on the goals that they're having for this lesson, the feedback that they want you to be giving, things that they specifically want you to look for. Like, I really want you to see how I'm including, the whole class in the participation, or just those kinds of things that the look for. So making sure that happens before you do the observation so that you can make sure you're giving the feedback that they want and need. And then after the observation, after you've looked at the video recording, making sure that you also meet again to then share your feedback with them. And the reflective conversation is really meant to be very candidate heavy as far as the speaking. So you'll see that in the video that we have from Mentoring Matters, that while the coach is asking questions and they are using the clarifying questions and the paraphrasing, most of the talking is the candidate, and that's how it should be, because we want the candidates to reflect on their progress and reflect on their teaching practice and be able to say, well, this is how I think it went, or these are the strengths that I think happened in this lesson, and these are some areas of growth I think I need to work on. We really want them to identify that, so they have the ownership of what needs to get done. And then, of course, you would also have that time to give any suggestions you might be wanting to make or set a goal for the next time around. Okay, so then we have the ILP, so the Individualized Learning Plan. It is the document that they work on for the entire year. It doesn't change. It's in Google Classroom. They each have their own copy of it, and we are asking that you check it before they submit it to us. So just so you know what's due and when, we've created this part of the presentation so you kind of know what to expect. So for draft number 1, which is due October 29th, boxes 1 through 5 are what need to be completed. And we'll look at each of those boxes in just a second, but I just wanted to mention that it's important that you're checking it before they turn it in, and that way you can give any feedback prior to our office giving feedback. And so that way, if they need to make any changes, or you see a box that was left blank by mistake, they have time to go ahead and fix that before they actually submit it to us. And in between drafts, they're just writing, or they're just typing into the same document. They're not creating a version of draft 1 and then a separate version document for draft number 2. It's the same document throughout the year. So they're just adding to it, making changes on it. And that way it's just the same copy that I'm reviewing. Sometimes we have people who make a separate copy, and then it gets a little confusing in Google Classroom, which one is what I'm supposed to be looking at. And I might think something's missing, but it's actually not. So just make it easier and make sure your candidate is working from the exact same document the whole year. Boxes 1 through 5. So number 1 is the goal or essential question. So this is where they determine their first goal. And remember, there's going to be 3 per candidate. So each candidate will have 3 goals for their ILP, unless they are completing our program in 1 year, which is the early completion option, then they will have 4 goals. But either way, their goals can be fluid in the first draft. So that means they might come up with some goals for this first draft, and then by the second draft, they might change them completely. And it's totally fine if they want to use the same goals that they've come up with for their meeting with their principal or whoever's doing their evaluations. So they'll have chosen some CSTP elements to work on anyway, and if they want to use those same ones for their ILP, that's fine, makes sense. Or if there's a site-wide goal or something like that, that's also welcome and they've been encouraged. Box number 2 is where they give the reason for their goal. So this is just real brief, 1 to 2 sentences, why it's a goal, why it's a priority for the candidate or for for their students. So this should be driven by a need, not a want. There should be a defined reason, something that we'll be able to actually see real growth over time. So, check that and make sure when you read it, it makes sense, and that maybe, you can help them phrase that a little bit so that it's clear of why this is their goal. So that's why we say have a discussion and really guide that reasoning. Box number 3. So even though this is probably the most basic of the boxes, it gets missed all the time. And so we've highlighted it to help, but it still got missed last year. So just make sure you're checking that they're filling this part in. What they're doing here is they're putting the CSTP an element of the goal. So if they're working on CSTP 6 element 1, then they're putting 6-1 here. And then below that, they're giving their placement. So if they feel that they're starting at emerging or exploring or applying, that they would put that here for draft number 1, then again where they're at for draft number 2, and one more time for their final placement. So for the first draft, they should have this part filled in, and they should also have their CSTP and element filled in. And like I had said in the orientation, we encourage you to have them use the continuum of teaching practice. So they should have placed themselves on all 38 elements, and it makes it a little bit easier for when they choose which ones they want to focus on. We do not want them to choose ones that they already feel they're already at the end, integrating, innovating. We would prefer them to choose ones that they're kind of in the beginning stages with so that they can show that growth throughout the program. If you have candidates that are year 1 and they've just come from a preliminary program last year, they may have that transition document that we've talked about. So they may have already worked on the TPEs, which are teacher performance expectations, which align perfectly to the CSTP. If that's the case, they can go off of that as well to choose their goals. But we still ask that they place themselves on that continuum because they're going to be asked to do that again at the end of this year and the end of the second year for their program for the surveys that we give them, because we need to be able to show the CTC their growth throughout the program. And the best way to do that is to collect that information from them. So we have them place themselves anyways, even if they use things from their university. Okay, box number 4, those are the measurable outcomes. So there's 2 sections here. 4A is where they're going to be writing out what they expect to see as a result of their teaching, either for their students, for them and their students, or for just them as the teacher. And this all depends on what it says in the CSTP continuum as well, because each section has either a teacher box or a teacher and student. So if it has teacher and student, then both are mentioned here for outcomes. They would have an outcome for themselves and an outcome for their students. And then in 4B, they're just saying what tool they will use to measure that outcome that they came up with in box 4. So for an example, if they say that they want to see their students improve by 1 reading level by the end of the year, if that's their measurable outcome for their students in 4A, then in 4B, they may use a pre and post rubric or pre and post assessment to track that growth, to show the growth over time for their students' reading levels. So that is an example of how you would have the outcome and then the tool that goes with it to measure it. If it's for themselves as the teacher and they're saying, let's say they want to improve on their collaboration with other teachers in their placement, then they would maybe have something like a journal where they reflect on their collaboration with those other teachers, and that would be their tool to measure their growth over time. It's really tricky when you get into those ones, and I'm totally here to help if anybody ever needs the help with that. But we do always try to encourage that they consider these questions when they're coming up with their measurable outcomes, that they figure out what is the knowledge or the skill that should be learned what level of learning is to be achieved. So what's that criteria, or what's that standard that they want their students to meet or themselves to meet? And then what are the conditions, right? So are they going to be doing this in small group or whole class? Whatever those conditions are, they have it clearly figured out. And so really what they're just trying to do is say at the end of the year, what changes they expect to see in their teaching or in the student achievement as a result of their work. So that's what Box 4 is all about. And like I said, I know sometimes it can get confusing, or like when it comes to choosing a tool, how to show that growth. But I'm here to help, and hopefully you can feel that you can help them with that as well. But I'm here to help you if you need some guidance on that. Because like I said, I know that it can get a little bit confusing sometimes on how to show growth, but we do want to try to think of things that are measurable. Box number 5, that's the last box that is due for draft number 1. And these are the action plan items. So they're going to come up with 2 to 3 items, which are things that they do outside of, themselves basically. So they're going to be reaching out to either a person or a resource, and they're not to be done in isolation. There's something that they're going to do that's going to teach them new strategies. They should also be related to their goal, obviously, but just so you know that they should be related to their essential question or goal. But the most important thing is that they include an outside resource. So sometimes we'll have candidates say that for their action plan item, they're going to create a new assessment. They can create a new assessment, that's fine. But who are they working on this with, or what resource are they referencing to do this? That's what we're looking for. So if they want to say, after my online research on such and such website, I'm going to be creating this assessment for my students. That's fine. So here are some other additional ideas. They can observe another teacher for new strategies. They can meet with their PLC if they have that, or their grade level or department for support with their goal. They could reach out to a CNI coach or an ELD coach for support with the curriculum or with strategies for their students. They can attend a PD that is aligned with their goals. There's a lot of different things they can do. And if you look at the sample ILPs that we have online, there's some really good ideas on there. So check it out. Let me know if you have any questions. If there's something that they're considering doing for their action plan and they're not sure if it would be, approved or whatever, just ask me and I'll let you know. But the biggest thing is that we're looking for that outside resource. So that mentor or colleague or coach or book or anything that they're using that's outside of themselves, basically. And just one quick note about the observing another teacher. As mentioned before, we are not able to give release days this year, not just for you as mentors, but also for the candidates. And it's really unfortunate, but we do want to try to find ways for our candidates to get to observe other teachers. So, for you as their mentor, if you're able to record yourself and give that to them, they can at least observe you. If there's another teacher that you feel like, they have a certain skill that would really benefit your candidate, I think it would be totally appropriate for you to ask that teacher on their behalf, or have them reach out if they're comfortable, and say, would you mind sending a recording of one of your lessons to my candidate so that they can see really great teaching? Because we really don't want to take those opportunities away. We just have to be kind of creative with how we do it this year. So hopefully we can make that work. You're always also welcome to ask your administrator for support with this. We try to involve the administrators with those kinds of things, with providing resources or ideas or strategies to help the candidates meet their goals. So if you have an administrator that's able to provide this, then that'd be great as well. But unfortunately, we don't have the ability to do release days at this point. Okay, so just a reminder, draft number 1 is due October 29th, but with all of our assignments, there's a 7-day grace period. So it won't be marked late until after November 5th. So if it comes to us after November 5th, then it's considered late. So, I know I'm pretty sure we said this in the orientation video as well, but if at any point you realize your candidate needs an extension beyond the grace period, so for this one, beyond November 5th, please reach out to us and let us know. We're happy to be flexible when we can be and give those extensions as needed, but we can't do it if we don't know. So please just let us know if that's the case for any of your candidates' assignments, or encourage them to reach out to us as well and say, hey, you might want to let Heidi know that you're not going to make it on time, and try to work out a plan B, a different due date or something like that. So like I said, we want to be flexible. We want to help as much as possible, but we can't do that if we don't know what's going on. So please make sure you're communicating those kinds of needs with our office. Okay, now I'm just going to talk a little bit about boxes 6 and 7 because those are due for draft number 2, and we will not meet again before draft number 2 is due. So box number 6 is evidence. This goes with box number 5 action plan items, which we were just discussing. For each action plan item in box 5, there should be a piece of evidence that goes with it. For draft number 2, it will just be a list of evidence. Because it's still a draft and those could change over time. They could decide to do different pieces of evidence. But we do want to see that they have an evidence listed that matches up to each action plan item from box 5. By the end of the year, so by the time they do their final ILP, they will then attach the actual evidence. So, if it's a screenshot of a student's assessment or a Google Doc of your reflection notes for yourself, whatever your evidence ends up being, we will ask that you attach it for the final ILP. Let's see. So just to give you one example from what we were discussing earlier when I said that if you had one of your measurable outcomes that you wanted your students to improve by 1 reading level by the end of the year, then you might be, for your action plan, you might be saying that you're going to work with your mentor. The candidate would be saying they're going to work with you, their mentor, on finding strategies to help improve their reading levels. And then their evidence might be the lesson plan that they created to do that, or an activity or a project that they came up with. But so we do want to look for that alignment between the boxes. So between the measurable outcomes, the action plan items, and the evidence, they should really all be very aligned in the planning. And then we have resources to check if you find it helpful. We have the ILP appendix on our webpage, and we have the ILP sample evidence. So there's 2 things you can look at for that, in addition to looking at the actual ILP samples that were provided from past candidates. So for the appendix, it goes over the specifics of focus students that are needed. So for the ILP, there should be 3 focus students. This is for the whole ILP. So remember, the ILP, they're going to have 3 or maybe 4 goals, but 3 for sure. So within the entire document, there needs to be 1 piece of evidence for an EL student. That's the first focus student. There needs to be 1 piece of evidence for a student with a special need. And then the third one is a student of their choice. And just so it's very clear, that's just the total. It's not per box. So it's not every single goal needs an EL student's evidence. It's not that. It's it's throughout the document, 1 per the whole ILP. So hopefully that's clear. Every year I feel like I'm explaining it in a way that's not, and so I'm sorry. But just ask me if you have a question about that. But if you look at the appendix, it should be pretty clear. And the other thing is sometimes we have candidates who don't have a designated EL student in their class, or they don't have a student with an identified special need. Well, in that case, we would suggest that they choose another student who has a similar need. So, for example, for the EL student, if you don't have an EL student, then they would want to look at their students and see, okay, well, is there someone who's really struggling with ELA? Then maybe that would be their student that they focus on, because what we're looking for is their ability to differentiate based on different student needs. Okay, so if they don't have an identified EL student, or a student with a 504 plan, or a student with an IEP, then we'll help work on that and figure out a student that maybe has something that is leading the teacher to differentiate for them based on observations, or based on just what they're seeing in their data, even if it's not necessarily something that's been identified professionally, I guess is what I'm saying. So, and then for that third focus student, it's their choice. They can choose a low student, they can choose an average student, they can choose a high student, they can choose a student with with trauma. They can choose anything, something totally up to them what they choose for their third focus student. Again, we're just looking at they're able to differentiate their instruction based on students' needs. And then we have box number 7. This is the mid-year reflection. So we're asking candidates that they reflect at the mid-year point on their progress of basically box number 4. So they've come up with these measurable outcomes for their students, or for themselves, or for both, and they are going to say how they're doing on that. What's working, what's not working. Is there anything that they're going to change at this point? So if they found that one strategy that they're using wasn't working, then they might decide to try a different strategy, and they can reflect on that in this box. If they decide to add an action plan item, they say, I've been meeting with my mentor. I think at this point we'd like to meet with a C&I coach. Now they can reflect on that in this box as well. So any changes that they plan on making, and just their progress overall on box 4. Oh, and just so it's clear, one paragraph, I would say somewhere, around 5 sentences or more would be great. If it's too brief and there's not enough reflection going on, I'm going to ask that they add more to it. So just check that as well, making sure that they have a decent paragraph there of reflection. And this draft number 2, which we were just talking about, so that's boxes 1 through 5 plus 6 and 7. That is due January 31st. But again, 7-day grace period, so February 7th at the latest. And again, if there's an extension needed, please communicate that with us. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with activity number 1. This is the Mentoring Matters videos. Again, this activity should take approximately 30 minutes. You're going to choose whether you watch a planning conversation video or a reflective conversation video. So when I'm done giving these instructions, you can go ahead and pause this video and then go ahead and complete this part of it. So what you'll be doing is you'll be going to the Miravia website, which has the mentoring videos. You will be prompted to create a free account with them just so you can access the videos. So I just use my FUSD email to do that. It's very easy, very quick, and then you can watch the videos. And so I've already given you the link, and you can get there, and then you'll see the 2 different videos that I'm referencing. Again, planning or reflective, and you choose which one you want to view. Once you have the video going, you will also be provided with some worksheets. So you can actually click on it from the slides right here and use those as you're viewing it. So it's going to be talking about paraphrasing and clarifying questions, and you'll kind of use those worksheets to kind of guide the way that you are thinking about what you're seeing in the videos. And then at the end, we have a Jamboard created, so you can actually go in and provide your thoughts on there as well. And hopefully we can get some collaboration going in that way with our candidates or with our mentors. That way we have something to go off of when we have our debrief as well. So there's a Jamboard for this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let you pause the video now, and you can start your Mentoring Matters video. Welcome back. Hopefully you were able to watch your video from activity number 1 and got some good notes on there, maybe saw some things that you would like to work on, or just got some good ideas on paraphrasing and how it looks when you're having those meetings with your candidates. All right, so the next activity that we're going to be doing, activity number 2, this is the art of coaching. This activity is also going to take approximately 30 minutes. We're asking that you read chapter 9. When you read any of the chapters in this book by Elena Aguilar, make sure you're replacing the word client with candidate. So she references clients, but for us it's candidates, and that makes it a little bit easier when you're reading through it. When you're done reading the chapter, you can explore resources that are linked here for this book. So we have some worksheets that you can use if you feel like they'd be helpful to you. But just kind of look through them and see if there's anything that would apply to your work with your candidates. And then we have a Google form that you can respond to. Please make sure you do respond to this. This part is required with this activity. And then join the Jamboard. We have another Jamboard going for the art of coaching, and share your thoughts, your impressions from what you read. And we'll go ahead and use that as well for our debrief. So I'm going to go ahead and let you pause the video again so you can complete activity number 2. And welcome back again. Hopefully you enjoyed reading chapter 9 and were able to take some time to explore those resources, respond to our form, and participate in the Jamboard. All right, so we have this last activity, which is the mentor self-assessment. This last activity should also take about 30 minutes. So what we're asking you to do is complete the mentor self-assessment worksheet. Be sure to make a copy of the document before you begin typing into it, of course. And so you're going to be looking at the different skills of mentors and placing yourselves similar to what your candidates have already done on the continuum for teaching. you're going to be doing this on the mentor self-assessment, and you're going to be placing yourselves either at emerging, developing, proficient, or refining for each of the areas, and then focusing on some goals that you want to work on for yourself as a mentor this year. When you complete the worksheet, the activity, you will then go to the survey, which is linked at the bottom of your document, and it's also linked here as well. So this is the Sinclair Research Group survey that they give us, and you'll be able to answer the questions based on the work you just completed in the activity. So have that handy to help you respond, and I'll go ahead and let you pause it again so you can go ahead and take care of this activity. All right, welcome back, and I hope you had a chance to do some reflection on your mentoring skills and where you want to be at the end of this year, and hopefully you've been able to identify some things that you want to work on, and remember that you can always reach out to me for support on whatever it is that you want to work on as a mentor. I just wanted to take a moment to look at our webpage, because I mentioned it a couple of times, but we hadn't gotten a chance to really look at it yet. So on the induction webpage, so I'll just go home so you can see what I'm talking about. So from this homepage, you can click on the tab ILP resources, and here's where the appendix is that I mentioned earlier, and also the sample evidence, so the lists of possible evidence that people can use for their ILP. And then here's the actual ILP samples, and so we have them from someone who is an ed specialist credential holder, a fifth grade teacher, first grade, PE, we have secondary English, and more. We have a lot of different ILP samples on here. Keep in mind that the ILP samples only show one goal, even though your candidates will have 3 or 4 goals. We just used a snapshot of each of these ILPs so that we just kind of kept it simple, so you can kind of get the idea there. All right. All right, so to kind of end the meeting or end this training video, I just want to reiterate that we really do have awesome mentors. You guys are amazing. I can't believe all the work that you do, and all the support that you're able to give to your candidates. And like I said, I love reading those comments at the end of every year that the candidates write about you, because it's just so meaningful and impactful for their teaching practice and also for our program, and just to know that that our candidates are in such great hands. And if at any time, you feel like you could use more support from me, please let me know. I'm here to support you as you're supporting your candidates. And we have these trainings only twice a year, but I'm willing to do anything you need me to do as far as supporting your candidates and supporting your work as a mentor. I want to offer that I'm able to attend any meetings with you and your candidates. If you ever want additional feedback, I know, like I said, we get the feedback from our surveys or from just what I hear from candidates in talking with them. But if you ever want me to come and observe one of your meetings with your candidates, I'm happy to do that and offer any feedback that I could possibly give. And just any resources that I have that come my way, I'll definitely pass on to you as mentors. And hope you know that you can always reach out if you need to. So thank you for participating as a mentor this year and for completing your training requirement for this session. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of this week, and hope to see you at one of the debrief sessions. Thank you.